higher seatbelt effect by driving more recklessly. That's at the individual level, what we do. At the market level, this happened to me at Uber. Anyone remember the Delete Uber campaign? Hashtag Delete Uber. Okay, good. So this is a fresh story. All the other ones are probably well known. 2017 would have been the night of January 27th, 2017. President Trump put out an executive order on immigration. You remember that? People went nuts. People went nuts. Around JFK, the cabbies went so nuts that they went on strike. Now, I was working at Uber back then, and Uber's response to sudden market changes like that, they turn off surge. They don't want to be viewed as price gougers. Makes sense. But back then, TK had made a few other missteps, so people were very suspicious of Uber. And a cabbie got very angry when he noticed Uber turned off surge. He got so angry he tweeted, hashtag delete Uber. That tweet forever affected the rideshare market. Here's how. Back then, we had Lyft on the mat. You think about a boxing match, 7, 8, they were waving the white flag. We could literally see it from Market Street. That's where the headquarters is in San Francisco, and Lyft is right down the street. They had roughly 5 to 7% of market share around the US. They were dead. We were killing them. Hashtag delete Uber gave Lyft a lifeline. A bunch of our drivers and a bunch of our consumers left Uber and went to Lyft. Now at Lyft, we have 30 to 35% of market across the US. That, I believe, was the lifeline that they needed and got. Okay, you can wonder, what's this all about scaling and spillovers? Travis came to my group. My group was called Team Ubernomics. Travis came to us and said, John, your job is to get the drivers back. Okay. So my idea is not very novel, but I said we need to allow tipping in the app. For all of you who take Uber now, and after the trip you can tip, right? Back then you couldn't. We didn't have tipping. I convinced the exec team that we should have tipping because the drivers wanted it. All the drivers thought that they were going to make a lot more money if we had tipping in the app. Okay, so we beta tested it. We went to, for example, Chicago or Denver or Seattle, and we allowed 5% of the drivers to receive tips in the app. Great stuff happened. They made more money, they worked more, they were happier. Okay, what do you think happened when we had all of the drivers in the market have the ability to receive tips? Well, when they all receive tips, they all work a little bit more. Guess what? They drive around with an empty car more often, and they work just enough to undo all of the wage effect. So what do I mean by that? Their hourly wages were identical after tipping as before tipping. They were just working more and driving around empty more often. The market itself came to a new equilibrium, and it undid all the good stuff. Okay? So that's what this chapter talks about, is spillovers. Last chapter is about the supply side. Supply side is how much does it cost me to produce it? Think about Chicago Heights. If I have to hire 30,000 really good teachers and I maintain high quality, what's going to happen to my budget? I'm dead, right? I'm dead. I have to go up the supply curve and it's going to kill me. I'm going to have voltage drop on the supply side. Okay, so that's what that chapter talks about. Let me check time. Because I'm halfway through the book, but I can do it in 2 minutes. Or
12:32. How long do you want, Christine?
Let me go 10 more minutes and I'll take any questions that you have.
Okay.
Okay. So what does the second half of the book do? The second half of the book starts by talking about incentives and how we should think about incentives. So when you think about bonuses, how do we usually give bonuses? We announce it, the person works all year, and at the end of the year, they get an end of the year Christmas bonus, right? That's how we do things. Here's what I did with the Chicago school teachers. I gave them money up front in an account. And I said, this is yours to keep, provided your students have value added on these standardized test scores. So that's one group, which is give them the money early. Another group is do the traditional thing. Give them the money at the end if their students achieve. Third group is don't give them any money at all. That's what teachers' unions like. Okay, so I did that experiment. Which of those three do you think does the best in terms of moving student test scores?
Money up front.
The upfront.
By far.
By far.
Yeah, by far.
It's exactly what happens. I give them money up front in a provisional account. They work a lot harder, they stay on task a lot longer. Instead of the last 8 minutes saying, everyone put your head down, and then read the newspaper, they work till the end. They put in more effort and it shows in the test. It worked in a Chinese manufacturing plant. It worked with farmhands in Wisconsin. It worked in Nepal. It works everywhere. Okay, now you might ask, why does it work? Your intuition is pretty strong. What do you think is going on here?
I just think the incentive, people feel like they've been rewarded already.
Part of it, they don't like to lose something. So it's called loss aversion.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's
Fear of loss.
Fear of loss, 100%.
Yeah.
So we all have psychological biases tied up in us. In the book, we'll teach you a lot about psychological biases. One of them is loss aversion. We hate to lose stuff. In fact, a loss of $10 is equivalent to a gain of 5. So it's roughly 2x when we estimate the power of the incentive. So if you use upfront, it's what I call clawback. If you use clawback incentives, you only need to spend half as much to get the same output increase. Okay, that's what the first chapter, and it talks a lot about tipping too. A lot of you said you took Uber in the past. Raise your hand if you tip in Uber when you take a tip. You guys tip every time? Okay, so you're very unusual because only 1% of people tip every time.
This is Wisconsin. We're nice.
Yeah.
In every state. In every state. Every state. Since I have the nationwide data, 1%. Only one, let me repeat that. Only 1% of people tip every time on Uber. Guess what if you take an ordinary cab? What percentage of people tip in that case, you think?
0.
No, face-to-face, ordinary cab.
No, it's much higher.
How much higher do you think it is?
30?
95.
Wow.
So we have data on tipping cabbies. It's 95.
Is that because it was started as a no tipping and some people still feel like?
No, because Lyft started as a tipping and they're the same way in Lyft data. It's face-to-face transactions and the social pressure of adhering to a social norm is so powerful, whether it's a restaurant or a cabbie, if it's face-to-face and the norm says you should do it, you do it. If it's not face-to-face, whether it's Lyft or Uber, when you separate the tip in space and time, I don't have to face you, right? Because a lot of us tip because we say, if I don't tip, I'm gonna feel like a jackass. The person's gonna think I'm an idiot. Better tip 20%. Do it in isolation where nobody's watching but yourself. 3 out of 5 people never tip once on Uber. 3 out of 5. Those are data, tipping. So in this chapter, I talk a lot about social norms around us and how we should think about incentives. Incentives are a lot more than just money. A lot of times when I'm on a plane, I'm flying somewhere, the person next to me will say, what do you do? You know, but I haven't had a chance to put my earbuds in, so then I know I have to talk. And then once I start talking, then it's over, right? You can tell I'm going to talk the whole trip. So the very first question the person says is, oh, you're an economist. What's the stock market going to do? What do you think interest rates are going to do? I haven't talked about any of those so far, have I?
Nope.
I look at the world as my lab. I think economics is life, and life is economics. I can give you predictions on the stock market, but unless I have inside information, it's all nonsense. I can tell you that. I'm an efficient markets guy. Okay, you've got to have some extra information to beat the market. And I don't. Well, I did at Lyft, and maybe I will at Walmart, so check back in 6 months. Maybe I can tell you about Walmart stock. Incentives are all around us. That's what the first chapter talks about. Another chapter back here talks about quitting. And this is going to rub a lot of you the wrong way, I think. So I was born in 1968. Who was the football coach of the Packers in 1968?
Lombardi.
Lombardi. Right? He was winning world championships. He won the first 2 Super Bowls. Would have been 68, 69 or something like that, first 2 Super Bowls. It's called the Lombardi Trophy now. I think his first Super Bowl was 67, 68. 67 season, first Super Bowl. I'm going to guess 67, but check me. If we only had a device that we could check. So I'm going to guess 67 season. Anyway, Vince Lombardi famously said, winners never quit, quitters never win. If you're raised in Sun Prairie, we all know that's our mantra, right? That's old school. I am here to tell you today that we don't quit enough. I think my grandfather might roll over. He was raised on Dewey Street. Well, he lived on Dewey Street. I was raised on North Street. My grandpa Augie might roll over if I said that. Maybe my dad would too, but he's down in Fort Myers right now, so he can't hear this. We don't quit enough for 2 reasons. One, society has taught us that quitting is repugnant. If you would list maybe the top 10 most repugnant words in the English language, I think quitting would be in the top 10. If you type in quitting inspirational quotes in Google, you will find enough posters that you would probably have to cut down half of the Amazon to print those all out, those bedroom posters. We are told from the beginning that we shouldn't quit things. That's society's fault. If we would have just called it pivoting or calling it audible, then we would really be respected, wouldn't we? Peyton Manning is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. What does he have, 5 MVPs? 2 Super Bowls? In part because he got his team out of a bad play at the line of scrimmage. He was great at reading the defenses, and he called it audible. Let's call it what it is. It's quitting that play, isn't it? But it's moving to another play. That's quitting. But when we do it, when we quit a job or quit a dream, we're called losers. The other reason why we don't quit enough is our own faults. And that's because we don't appreciate our opportunity cost of time. Another way to say that is we entirely ignore our opportunity cost. Okay, what does that mean? That's a lot of economies. What does that mean? When I talk to people who quit their jobs, guess what the #1 reason for quitting a job is?
Don't like their boss.
Boss doesn't appreciate me anymore. What's the #2 reason? I didn't get the promotion or the pay raise. What's the 3rd reason you think? I got cross with a coworker.
Culture.
Got cross with a coworker. I'm out of here. All of those reasons are based on my current lot in life got soiled. So I decided to look around.